Hi, in this video we're going to look at the topic of inequalities, which is a GCSE higher topic. We're going to look at solving inequalities and also showing answers on a number line. I'm also going to make a video where we look at graphing inequalities, but that's not going to be covered in this video. So we're simply looking at solving and showing answers on a number line. In more detail, we're going to look at solving both linear and quadratic inequalities, which is very similar to solving equations, so similar skills needed. Again, if you're not comfortable in solving equations at this point, go back and check out the video on solving equations. We're also going to show how the answers can be represented on a number line or in a very limited way on a graph, but I will do more video work on graphs on a separate video. Okay, so as a quick kind of reminder, when we're talking about inequalities, what we're talking about are, rather than seeing an equal sign, we're actually looking at things that mean greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. If you're not sure which way round these go, I'm going to make a quick note here, and again you can make revision notes as we go through. This is greater than, this one is less than, greater than or equal to, and finally less than or equal to. Okay, if you're not sure, the way I always remember this is that this looks a little bit like a capital L. So it's pointing in the same direction as a capital L. It looks a little bit like L for less than. That's as simple as that. That's how I remember it. And actually, we can use these inequalities in a range of different ways. You might see it to replace an equal sign. You might see it to show that a number lies between two different numbers, and we see that quite a lot when we're doing our data work. In a grouped data table, for example, you might see that x lies between two numbers, and it'll use an inequality sign like this to show that it lies between them. And down the bottom I've represented a number line with an inequality here, and it's really important that you understand what goes on here. There's a couple of things that I want to point out. The first one being this here shows a filled in circle, and at the other end it's an open circle. This is important. It's not just there as a typo or something that's a blob on the page. It actually means something. And what it means is, it says write an inequality for the range of values of x represented on this number line. Okay, and I'll show you how you do this. It means that x lies between 5 and -4. Now, at this bottom end down here, we can see this is coloured in. It means that x is up to and including -4, and it's strictly less than 5. It's open, an open circle at this end, and that means less than or greater than. When it's coloured in, it means less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. Okay, so in terms of representing something on a number line, I always do it by writing x down in the middle, write the two numbers, and then think about the inequality signs at the end. In this example, I'm going to look at solving a linear inequality and representing my solution on a number line. You can see I've taken this from an exam paper where it's worth 3 marks. In order to solve my inequality, I almost pretend it's a equation that I'm trying to solve. So I may write underneath 2x minus 1, and instead of it being greater than or equal to, I might just write equals 5. In terms of solving this, we do it in the normal way. I always use arrows to show what I'm doing, keeping the same function on both sides. I'm adding 1 to both sides here. So add 1, I get 2x equals 6. Divide both sides by 2. And divide by 2, x equals 6. Now, that's fine, except for the fact that not 6, 3. That's fine, except for the fact that the question didn't ask me to solve an equation equal to something. It said greater than or equal to 5. So, because that was the case, what I need to do is to write this sign to be greater than or equal to. My actual answer is x is greater than or equal to 3. Now, one thing to point out at this point, you need to be really careful of this. If for some reason at this stage here you've divided both sides by a negative value, it actually flips your sign around. I haven't here. I've divided by positive values, so I'm keeping it the same. It appears very rarely on a higher GCSE paper, but it's something I want to make you aware of. If you are dividing by a negative, you need to flip your sign around. We haven't done here. I'm quite happy that my answer is x is greater than or equal to 3. Representing this on a number line then. Okay, the way we're going to do it is we're going to use a blob, and we're going to show all the numbers with an arrow that are greater than or equal to 3. Now, at the moment I've left this as an open circle. An open circle here just means greater than. If I colour it in, it means it also includes the number 3. So it's greater than or equal to 3. We don't have to write it right over the number line because then you can't see the numbers. A little bit above is perfectly fine. Okay, in this second example we're going to look at a quadratic inequality, and it's very similar. This one says use the graph of y equals x squared plus 2x minus 3 to solve x squared plus 2x minus 3 is greater than or equal to 0. Now, it may not have given you a graph in the first place. It might have just said solve x squared plus 2x minus 3 is greater than or equal to 0. And actually, in terms of helping you in this video, I'm actually going to show you what to do for this. Now, what I would do whenever we're solving any kind of quadratic, we always need to factorise it. So that would be the first thing that I do. Now, you can see what the factorisation is going to give us. It's going to give us our roots, and you can see what the values are. But before we kind of jump ahead, let's just do that. I'm thinking of numbers that multiply together to give me minus 3 and add together to give me positive 2. I'm going to get I'm going to get 3, positive 3, and minus 1. Okay, this is still greater than or equal to 0. If I'm thinking of now what the roots are, so x equals 1 and x equals 3, I can see that from here, 1 and 3. Now, I have to be really careful at this point about what my final answer is going to be. It's asking for all the values of x that are greater than or equal to 0. Well, that's up here and it's up here. I've actually got two places where it's greater than or equal to 0. So when I'm writing this, I can't just write it in a single line. I'm actually going to have to write it in two different ways. I'm going to have to say that x is greater than or equal to 1, and we can see that from over here, but also x is less than or equal to 3, to minus 3. X is less than or equal to minus 3, and we can see that over here. All these values up here are less than or equal to minus 3. Anything in between minus 3 and 1 gives us a value that is less than 0. So the only answers that I can give are this one and this one. What you need to do is have a go at both of these sorts of questions. Solving a simple linear equation, and maybe you could represent that on a number line. And the second one is similar to the example that I did. I want you to use the graph to solve minus x squared minus 2x plus 3 is less than or equal to 0. Okay, so have a go, see what happens. And actually, maybe for a little bit of interest, you could also see what happened if you got minus x squared minus 2x plus 3 is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, pause the video, have a go at those answers, and I'll show you the solutions in a minute. Okay, I'm just going to split the page in half so we can see. First of all, on this left hand side, if we're solving this, we can add 7 to both sides. So 3x, right, add 7 and add 7. 3x is going to be greater than 12 divided by 3, I get x is greater than 4. Now if you've changed it to equal signs, that's fine, as long as you remember to put the inequality back in at the end. All the values of x greater than 4, so I'm going to write a number line. Here's 2, 3, 4. Represent this on my number line. Here we go. And I've left it open circle this time because it is greater than, not greater than or equal to. Okay, the second one. Using this graph to solve minus x squared minus 2x plus 3 is less than or equal to 0. You may have factorised it, or you may have looked at the picture and just looked at the roots. We can see that it's going to be less than or equal to 0 here and here. So x is going to be less than or equal to minus 3. X is going to be greater than or equal to 1. Actually, it's a very similar equation to the one we saw last time in the example. But for the bit of interest, and if you've done it, what I was suggesting was that we look at all the places that it's not less than or equal to, but greater than or equal to 0. And we can see that that happens here. And we can write that as follows. X lies between 1 and minus 3. Thinking about my inequality, x has to be less than or equal to 1. So I'm going to write that one in. X has to be less than or equal to 1. And I use the same sign on the other side, which shows that minus 3 is less than or equal to x. Whenever you've got an inequality and it's the number lies between, you'll notice that the sign on the right is exactly the same as the sign on the left. You shouldn't ever have one that shows it the opposite way. That's not technically correct, and it looks a little bit messy as well. So we normally see it like this, or if we're writing two solutions, let's write it as two separate lines. Okay, throughout the videos that I've been making, there is a section for revision notes where you can write your own notes. What I would say is, with inequalities, when you're solving them, treat them just like solving equations. It's fundamentally the same process. Just be aware though that if you're dividing by a negative value, you need to switch your sign over. That'll be one thing I would say just to kind of take care of. Remember which way the sign is. So if you take out the inequality, replace it with an equals because you find it easier to do. Remember which way it is, and remember that when you are looking at writing your number on a number line, that it's open if it's less than or greater than, greater than or less than, and you colour it in if it is greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. It might ask you for an integer solution. One of the things I didn't mention in this video, you might be asked to say, write down all the integer solutions for the following inequality, like this, and this says all the numbers between minus 1 and 3, not including minus 1, but including 3. So you would write down 0, 1, 2 and 3. And finally, what I would say is, whenever you're unsure, and certainly with the quadratics, you might not be given a graph, just sketch them out. I'm hoping that you've got good at quadratics at this point. So when it gets tricky, draw a picky. It just helps you so that you can see which part of the quadratic it is that you're interested in, whether it's below the line or the two prongs coming up here. Okay, I think you'll find that more easy to spot than just trying to do it without a picture. Okay, as ever, good luck with your exams. I'll keep my fingers crossed that you do well. Keep watching the videos. If you want any information, you can send me a message on Twitter, either at Tupton Maths or at Mr_G_Walton. Okay, good luck. Bye.